Welcome back, everyone, to another reaction video. Well, if you have not already seen my community post this morning, please check it out on the homepage of the channel here on YouTube. There's a new channel launching in the VTH multiverse. It's called Stories of the Great War. It's going to be 100% original content, all connected with World War I. All of my historic site videos that I've done or that have already been uploaded to this channel are going to be migrated to that channel. But also there's going to be weekly original content. I'm going to be doing in-studio content. I'm going to be doing more historic site videos, museums, interviews with other people, bringing on special guests, all connected with the Great War. So please check that out if you get a chance. There is a video that I posted that is the trailer for the channel to tell you a little bit more about what to expect there. Many of you may have heard me mention at some point in the last few years, if you've been around, that I once worked for iPhone tech support for AT&T at a call center here in our local community, answering calls from people having trouble with their iPhones, and I would talk them through over the phone what to do. And I learned a lot about how cell phone networks work. Now, granted, this was 12, 13 years ago, so a lot has changed since then, but the basic concepts are the same. And one of the things that I learned that I was really surprised to find out is that I always had this idea in my mind that when you make a cell phone call, that wireless signal is going to a tower, which bounces it to another tower, to another tower, to another tower, and it all goes wirelessly until it hits the tower that's connected to the people that you're calling. That's not actually how it works. There are wireless connections between towers, like smaller towers, but eventually what your signal does is it goes to a tower that is connected to an underground cable that connects it to a data center that shoots it out another underground cable to a tower that sends a wireless signal. Now, sometimes there are wireless signals between towers, depending on the towers, but eventually it does go over a cable. So I was really fascinated to learn that, and that led me to want to know more about how cables work, even in the modern world. And so we're back to the map men on Jay Foreman's page. This is Internet versus Ocean, the essential wires we never think about. I'll put the link down in the description so you can check it out. I'm an Anglophile. I love British humor, so I love these guys. I think they're fantastic. I've seen quite a few of their videos. Have not seen this one, so I'm excited to dive in. Let's go check it out.
Imagine a world without the internet?
Yes, and it was marvellous.
Welcome to Map Men.
We're the men.
And here's the map.
Map men, map men, map men.
Although most of us use the internet at least every other day, nobody understands how it works.
All we know is that it's very big, very clever, very important, and impossible to show on a map.
Then why are we doing an episode about it?
Because I was lying. Take a look at this map. It shows all the undersea cables that connect the world's computers, and looking at this map reveals a surprising amount about how the modern world works.
Whilst we can't wait to show you all the weirdest and wonderfulest bits of this exciting chart, before the geography lesson we need to put the globes that fell off the wall back on the wall and then give you a quick history lesson.
So I'm sure they're going to talk about the history of cables, and there have been underground cables connecting, say, North America and Europe since the 1860s, which is such a fascinating thing. When you think about that, even in the years after the Civil War, there was a connection between, say, England and the United States that would take just a matter of hours. At a time when 100 years earlier, it was weeks and weeks, sometimes months, to get a message across and then get a response.
For the vast majority of human history, a message could only travel as fast as a human, meaning it was normal to wait days or even months to receive a very important message.
Very slightly faster methods did exist. Smoke signals, water clocks, beacons, flags.
But these only worked for predetermined messages. If you wanted to send a completely original thought, such as Thursday my dungarees fish basket hollybobs, that was impossible.
So what he means by predetermined messages, so if you've seen, for example, Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, they light the beacons to signal for Gondor to come to their aid. So what they would do is they would have these beacons at distances that were far enough to where it could travel fast, but close enough you could still see. So you'd light a fire, and then the next person would light their fire, and then one on the other side of that would light the fire, and that would cause a message to travel very quickly, just as quickly as people could see the fire and light their own fire. But the problem is that only works if you already know what the message means. So you can't send unique messages. You can't send things that might not be expected. You can only do, like he said, a predetermined message.
Until...
In 1777, a French chap called Claude Chappe invented a way to send long-distance messages using an alphabet made up of symbols that could be seen from a very long way away. On a hilltop, one person operated a machine that could rotate the position of 2 large sticks.
And on another hilltop, a second person would copy the shape, relaying it onto the next hill, and so on, until it was finally decoded at the other end.
Chappe called his system the telegraph, from the French Telegraph, from the Greek Telegraph.
It was now possible to send a message from Paris to Lille in just 12 minutes rather than the usual 12 hours.
Which is really impressive, but again, it requires a high degree of skill. And isn't it interesting it's called telegraph, because that's going to be the term that's used for the first real over-wire communication invented by Samuel Morse.
At its peak, the French telegraph network looked like this.
This is the earliest example of a physical network built to transmit information
impressive.
at high speeds across long distances. It was the beginning of the internet.
So why aren't we still using mechanical telegraphs today?
Bad question. The flaws were obvious. It only worked in the daytime, it only worked in good weather, and it required lots of highly trained workers who were vulnerable to mistakes and bribery.
Thankfully, long-distance messaging took a necessary huge leap forward in the 1830s, when a pair of British inventors had a much better idea: the electric telegraph.
The electric telegraph sent pulses of electricity across copper wires that could be stretched pretty much any distance. It was the beginning of the internet. A contraption like this, which by the way would be an awesome clue in an escape room, was used to convert these electric pulses into almost every letter of the alphabet.
And then a very clever man called Samuel Morse, named after Morse code, invented an easy-to-learn alphabet made up of...
Named after Morse code. No, he invented Morse code, which made it much more simple. And one of the reasons why you get into the 20th century and you have SOS as a signal for help is because it was a really easy signal to understand, because it was ... .. And I'm really curious. Oh, I guess that's probably his name. Yeah, that's his name that they're spelling right there.
And
Morse code was a massive improvement. It only needed 2 Ys instead of 6, you could finally send messages quickly, and you could finally spell quickly.
Morse code became a vital tool for the military, government, railways, journalism, and big business. But if Morse code was going to achieve the absolute world domination it was surely destined for, one final hurdle had to be overcome.
Wireless.
The Wet Susan.
Oh.
The most significant advance in telegraph technology came in 1850, when the aptly named English Channel Submarine Telegraph Company
Boring.
nervously laid the first cable under the sea, desperately hoping they wouldn't electrocute all the fish.
To the relief of haddock everywhere, it worked. The world's first submarine telegraph in the English Channel successfully allowed communication across the sea between 2 countries.
And that's massive, right? Because that means if it can work under the English Channel, it can work under anything. Of course, the English Channel is not nearly as deep or as wide as, say, the Atlantic Ocean, but the same concept is certainly theoretically possible. You got to start small to be able to think big.
It was the beginning of the internet.
By the mid-19th century, 2 enormous networks had grown in Europe and America.
The next logical step was to connect these 2 networks together. But the Atlantic Ocean was very big. Nobody knew how telegraph technology could traverse it.
Until, that is, an American businessman with a beard and no moustache, called Cyrus Westfield, finally figured it out.
We need a very long cable. But laying a very long cable under the ocean presented some unique challenges.
It took several failed attempts to lay a cable that worked. The first cable wasn't long enough. The second cable snapped. The third cable fell in the water.
Well, you have to understand, they don't know how deep the ocean is, right? So there's certainly pitfalls to that. What if you're laying it and then there's a chasm and it falls down an extra mile? That's an extra mile of cable, 2 miles of cable you didn't know you would need. One to go down and one to come back up the other side. Unless you're pulling it taut and it's just going across that. And then, of course, there's the concerns about, well, you're using a technology that hasn't been tested for years under salt water. So corrosion is an unknown factor, and I believe that's what ends up happening. They have a successful wire they lay in the 1860s. It works for a little while, and then it stops working. And so all that work went for nothing.
The fourth cable wasn't compatible with the fifth cable and couldn't be joined up in the middle.
Finally, 4 years later, Cyrus's first transatlantic cable was complete.
On August the 16th, 1858, Queen Victoria sent the very first transatlantic text message, reading,
"Glory to God in the highest, On earth, peace and goodwill toward men.
Quoting
And it was
the
sent
Bible.
to President James Buchanan.
At just 2 minutes per letter, the message was received in little over 17 hours. The cable stopped working after just a few weeks, but it didn't matter. The technology was proven possible.
The very
That's
same
amazing.
cable laying technology was used to lay more and more cables all over the world, each one more reliable than the last, which grew into the phone network, which grew into the internet. It was the beginning of the internet. Cable laying is done pretty much the same way today.
Drop it in,
Only nowadays, when the cable's nearer the shore, they tend to,
bury it a bit.
for good measure.
But the one big difference is what's in the wires.
A modern subsea internet cable is about as thick as a human garden hose.
Really?
The business bit carrying the actual data is a tiny bunch of fibre optic cables.
It's coated in a protective layer of...
And think about fiber optic. 200 terabytes per second. Incredible technology. They just finished laying fiber optic cable underground in our community here, which doesn't change the download speed a ton, but changes the upload speed a lot, which for a YouTuber is fantastic news. Allows for us to upload a lot faster than we're able to right now.
polyethylene, copper sheathing, aluminium or steel wires according to taste, and lovingly smothered in Vaseline.
5 minutes and 17 seconds to cover the entire history of long-distance communication, and we didn't miss a single detail out.
What about radio?
Which means we are now finally ready to take a good look at the gorgeous map of all the undersea cables that exist today.
Now what's happening?
Any regrets?
No, not really.
Skydiving?
What about buying these cheap parachutes?
Oh yeah, apart from that, yeah, that's probably the main one. What about you?
I regret that I never turned my big idea into a business reality.
Oh, what was that?
A fail-safe parachute that can't get twisted.
That's a nice idea. Why didn't you follow through with it?
Well, it was all a bit big and scary. And anyway, I never could find a good, easy-to-use e-commerce platform that worked for me.
Oh,
It's
why
an
didn't you try
ad.
Shopify?
Nice.
Shopify is an all-in-one commerce platform that makes it super easy to create an online store. You just sign up, and Shopify has everything you need to make a beautiful website, add products, set prices and deals, and handle inventory. Whatever you're selling, Shopify makes the business of growing and managing a business super easy.
Isn't mapmenmerch.com powered by Shopify?
It is, yes. Just goes to show, even a pair of absolute dunderheads like the Mapmen with no technological know-how whatsoever can cobble together some t-shirts, mugs, posters and stickers and sell them to customers all around the whole wide world.
What's a dunderhead?
If you've got something to sell, why not click the link in the description below to take the first step to starting your own
Nice.
business using good old Shopify.
Clever.
There,
I like
I've
it.
done it. Parachutesafety.net is open for business thanks to Shopify.
And it was as easy as falling out of an aeroplane.
Shopify! Don't wait to start your big idea.
This delightful, colourful map from Telegeography's submarinecablemap.com is a true map of the internet. It shows all of the 552 and counting undersea cables which allow very different parts of the world to use the exact same internet.
There is, of course, a much denser network of wires over land. After all, landlocked countries deserve the internet too. But it's nowhere near as interesting to look at.
Some of the unlikely routes on this map reveal that it's cheaper and faster to lay a sea cable even when a land route is available.
Such as these ones that bounce around the outside of Africa.
I was wondering about that. Yeah, and it makes sense because you're not having to dig up dirt and then rebury it, and you're not having to go around buildings and existing pipes and electric cords and everything. It makes a lot of sense that they do it that way.
South America, this one that goes all the way over the top of Russia,
Wow.
and this one that goes from America to America.
The clear, clean and mostly straight lines of this undersea cables map, ignoring Southeast Asia, strikingly show which parts of the world are most interested in which other parts. North America and Europe, for example, have got way more cables connecting them than seemingly necessary, reflecting the huge amount of cross-continental commerce and communication that goes on between them.
Why does James Corden keep going back and forth? Let him stay over there.
Data from Australia to South America is happy to take the more scenic route.
So it's perhaps no coincidence that this map so strongly resembles maps of major flight paths and shipping lanes.
It's
Oh, yeah.
also no coincidence that countries with the fewest cable connections tend to be the world's poorest. Just one cable serves the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Sierra Leone and Liberia.
But does the number of connections you have and to whom actually matter? Wouldn't one cable each be plenty of internet to be going round?
Sadly not. These cables are susceptible to breakage due to sabotage from hostile countries,
So
earthquakes,
you're building into it a lot of redundancy. So if one or two cables go down, you've got more. You know, you had the situation in 1858, that first undersea cable works for a couple weeks and then it's done. So if you have multiple cables, one goes down, you've still got redundancy, you've got other opportunities to still be able to keep that communication up.
Quakes and being eaten by sharks. So it makes sense to have at least a couple of spares.
In 2022, the Shetland Islands became even more remote when their key cable was shredded by an overzealous fishing boat.
I'll tell you who the killer was. It was... Duncan must be home.
More importantly,
Duncan
the
must
cables
be
under the sea
home.
carry about $10 trillion worth of financial transactions every day.
And if those cables failed, nobody would be able to buy pink suitcases, funny hats, teddy bears, or basketballs.
Which makes a great point about what were to happen if we were to lose our electronic capabilities. And that's certainly a defense concern for major countries to protect the internet, protect the infrastructure that connects it, because so much of our commerce, so much of our communication does rely on those things.
So if these cables are so completely critical to life in 2023, or whichever year it is where you are, shouldn't we be worried about who actually owns them?
Yes, we should, because increasingly these cables are being built by a very
It was the beginning of the internet.
small handful of powerful companies.
Google, Microsoft and Meta have spent billions of human dollars building their own massive private cables.
And this matters, partly because we all then become dependent on these largely unregulated companies for a crucial piece of 21st century infrastructure, but also, can we really be sure these tech giants aren't listening into their fancy hoses to collect yet more of the valuable private data belonging to you and me?
With so much of our daily technology use now wireless, be it the phone in your pocket or the router in the awkward bit of the drawer next to the TV, it's important to remind ourselves that the internet is not some invisible benevolent technology. It still requires physical things, servers, wires, data centers.
It's particularly telling that we refer to the mysterious netherworld where all the world's computers connect as the cloud, when it's actually on the bottom of the ocean, the opposite of a cloud.
So, next time you send an email, stream a TV show, or listen to the audio only of 20% of an episode of Map Men with the video minimized and a tab in the background, remember,
It's been through a layer of Vaseline.
That was great. The perfect amount of information, but also entertainment. And I thought, as always, they do a fantastic job with all of that. So really enjoyed that. I hope you guys did too. And like I said, I'll throw up a link here to the channel trailer for the new channel. And I will be putting some of the existing content that is now on this channel up on that one in the coming days, but also already working on the first new original content. It's going to be a video from in studio here about Billy Bishop, who was Canada's ace of aces during the First World War, with over 70 confirmed aerial victories. So I hope you'll check that out. Subscribe to the new channel. Thanks for watching.